It was one of those crisp autumn mornings when the hospital parking lot was still wet from last night's rain, the air smelling faintly of damp leaves and coffee. Dr. Michael Hayes, one of the city's top surgeons, stepped out of his car with the quiet confidence of a man used to saving lives. But behind that calm exterior, his heart was heavy with a burden no amount of medical skill could fix. His only daughter, Lily, had never taken a single step in her life. Born with a rare condition that left her legs too weak to support her, Lily had grown up watching the world run, dance, and skip past her from the seat of her wheelchair. No surgery, no therapy, no breakthrough had ever made a difference. She had accepted her fate. Dr. Hayes never could. Lily was 10 now, bright-eyed, curious, and full of stories she wrote in her notebooks. She had learned to find joy in small things: the sound of rain tapping her bedroom window, the smell of fresh bread her mother baked on Sundays, the way her father's tired eyes softened when he came home late from work. But deep down there was still that ache, that dream she barely dared to whisper anymore, the dream of walking even just once on her own 2 feet. That morning, the city was busier than usual. Outside the hospital, a young boy sat on the curb, his knees drawn to his chest, a worn backpack at his side. His clothes were mismatched and his sneakers were falling apart. People walked past without a glance, or worse, with a look that said he was invisible. His name was Marcus, and though the world only saw a homeless boy, there was something in his eyes, sharp, searching, alive, that told another story. Dr. Hayes noticed him for just a moment before hurrying inside. Marcus didn't look away. Something about the tall man's expression struck him. Later that day, as the hospital bustled with patients and visitors, Marcus found himself wandering inside, drawn by a feeling he couldn't explain. That's when he saw her, Lily, in the waiting area, sketching something in her notebook. She glanced up, their eyes meeting for the first time. He gave her a small smile, the kind that said he saw her, really saw her, not the wheelchair. They started talking. She learned he'd been on his own for months, moving from shelter to shelter. He learned she'd never walked. That was when Marcus said something no one had ever dared say to her before. He leaned in, his voice steady, almost certain, and whispered, "Let me try." Lily blinked at him, unsure if she'd heard right. Her father's words echoed in her head. That walking was impossible without years of therapy, and maybe even then. Never. But Marcus didn't look like someone making an empty promise. He looked like someone who knew. And in that moment, in the middle of the busy hospital, with strangers passing by and the world moving as it always had, Lily felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. She had no idea that what was about to happen next would change not only her life, but his. Marcus didn't explain right away what he meant. He just sat there beside Lily, watching her draw with quiet focus, as though he had all the time in the world. The hospital's noise faded into the background, the distant hum of elevators, the muted announcements, the echo of hurried footsteps. Lily wanted to ask him how a boy like him could possibly help her walk when doctors and specialists had failed. But something in his calm made her hold her tongue. Dr. Hayes returned a few minutes later, surprised to see his daughter talking to someone. He glanced at Marcus, his expression polite but guarded. Years of working in an emergency room had taught him to read people quickly. Marcus didn't seem threatening, but there was something unreadable about him. Before Dr. Hayes could say anything, a nurse called him away for a consult. Lily didn't miss the way her father's eyes lingered on Marcus before he left. As the day went on, Marcus stayed. He told Lily bits and pieces about himself, but never the whole story. He mentioned a grandmother who used to live by the river, and how she believed there were paths inside the body that could be unlocked. He spoke about watching people walk differently, and how some moved like they were fighting themselves while others moved like the earth was helping them. His words were strange, yet they painted pictures in Lily's mind. When Dr. Hayes returned to take Lily home, Marcus stood up and offered to push her wheelchair outside. Dr. Hayes hesitated, then agreed, watching closely. Outside, the evening air was cool, and the streetlights had just flickered on. Marcus walked alongside Lily in silence, but there was a focus in his eyes, like he was studying every small shift of her posture, every move of her hands and shoulders. That night at home, Lily couldn't stop thinking about him. It wasn't just what he said, it was the way he said it. There was no pity in his voice, no overexcited cheer like the therapists who had tried to motivate her before. It was more like he knew something she didn't. She even caught herself imagining what it might feel like to stand, to take a step, to feel the weight of her body shift the way she had seen in other people. Meanwhile, Marcus found a place to sleep under the awning of a closed bookstore, pulling his worn jacket tighter around him. He kept replaying their meeting in his mind. He had seen something in Lily, a spark, a readiness. It was the same look he had seen once before, in someone else's eyes years ago. And he remembered what had happened then. The next morning, Marcus showed up outside the hospital again, waiting. When Lily arrived for a routine checkup with her father, she spotted him instantly. He grinned, and without waiting for her to speak, he said, "Not today, but soon." Lily didn't understand what he meant, but her heart raced anyway. And somewhere deep inside she could feel it, something was coming. Something that might just change everything. Over the next week, Marcus seemed to appear wherever Lily went. Sometimes she would see him outside the hospital entrance, leaning casually against the brick wall, other times near the small park where her mother liked to take her after appointments. He never pushed, never insisted. He would just talk, share small stories, ask her questions about her day, and quietly watch the way she moved in her chair. It was strange, instead of feeling like he was studying her, she felt like he was learning with her. Dr. Hayes noticed the pattern quickly. At first, he assumed Marcus was just another kind-hearted stranger, maybe lonely, maybe curious. But when he caught the boy watching Lily's legs with a sort of quiet calculation, something tightened in his chest. He asked Lily about it one evening at dinner, but she only smiled and said, "He's different, Dad. Not like the others." That answer did nothing to ease his unease. One afternoon, Marcus asked if Lily could meet him in the park, away from the hospital. Her father agreed reluctantly, staying within sight but far enough to give them space. Marcus led Lily to a quiet corner under a row of tall trees, the kind that let thin strands of sunlight fall through like golden ribbons. He crouched down in front of her wheelchair, resting his hands lightly on the armrests. "Your body's been told it can't do something," he said softly. "But that's just a story. And stories can change." Lily frowned. "You make it sound easy." "It's not easy," Marcus replied. "But it's possible." He didn't try to make her stand, not yet. Instead, he asked her to close her eyes. He spoke slowly, telling her to imagine the feeling of standing, to picture the pressure of her feet against the ground, the sway of her balance, the strength of her spine holding her up. His voice had a strange rhythm to it, almost like music, and though she didn't understand it, she found herself sinking into the images he painted. From the bench nearby, Dr. Hayes watched with growing suspicion. He had seen countless therapists, specialists, and trainers try to motivate his daughter before. None of them had ever used words like Marcus did. And none of them had ever kept her this focused for so long. It was unsettling, and yet, he couldn't deny the light in Lily's eyes. But there was something Marcus wasn't telling them. The boy's knowledge didn't come from medical training or books. It came from someone he had once known, someone who had taught him about hidden pathways in the body and how the mind could unlock what the muscles had forgotten. He had seen it work once. He had also seen it fail. And now, as the late afternoon shadows stretched long across the park, Marcus wondered if he was risking more than Lily realized. Because if he was wrong, if this didn't work, he wouldn't just lose her trust. He might break something inside her that could never be fixed. Yet he stayed. And Lily, without knowing why, trusted him more each day. The days grew colder, and the park visits became their quiet ritual. Marcus never pushed Lily to try standing, but each time, he inched her closer to it. They practiced shifting her weight in the chair, imagining the steps before they ever happened. He spoke to her about the ground as if it were alive, as if it could hold her when her legs couldn't. Lily didn't fully understand, but something deep inside her started to believe it was possible. Dr. Hayes, however, was reaching a breaking point. He had seen enough miracle promises to know how easily they could shatter hope. Every time Lily came home smiling because of something Marcus had said, a knot of fear grew tighter in his chest. One evening, he confronted Marcus outside the hospital. "You need to be careful with her," Dr. Hayes said, his voice low but sharp. "She's been through enough. I won't let anyone give her false hope." Marcus met his eyes without flinching. "I'm not giving her false hope. I'm giving her a chance." The words stayed with Dr. Hayes long after Marcus walked away. He didn't know whether to be angry or curious. A week later, Marcus told Lily, "Tomorrow." Just that one word, but it carried a weight that made her heart race. She didn't know exactly what he planned, but she felt it in the air. Something was coming. That night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her mind spinning between excitement and fear. The next morning, the park was almost empty. A thin mist clung to the grass, and the air smelled faintly of rain. Marcus was already there, pacing. His eyes lit up when he saw her. "This is it," he said quietly. He wheeled her to a spot beneath the tall trees, the same place they had met so many times before. But this time his movements were different, more deliberate, more focused. He crouched in front of her, his hands steady on the chair. "Close your eyes," he whispered. She did, and the world faded to the sound of his voice. He guided her through every sensation, the weight in her feet, the pull in her calves, the strength in her thighs. He told her to feel the earth holding her steady, to trust it, to trust herself. Dr. Hayes stood at a distance, his pulse quickening. Every muscle in his body told him to stop this, to pull Lily away before she got hurt. But something in Marcus's presence kept him frozen in place. "Now," Marcus said. Lily opened her eyes. Her hands gripped the sides of the chair. Marcus's gaze locked on hers. "We do this together," he said, his voice firm. She nodded, her breath shaky. And as she began to shift forward, the entire world seemed to narrow down to that one moment. Her, Marcus, and the silent question hanging in the air. Would her body obey? Or betray her again? Just as Lily began to lean forward, feeling the shift of her weight for the first time in her life, a sharp voice cut through the misty air. "Lily!" She froze. Dr. Hayes was no longer standing at a distance. He was striding toward them, his face pale, his eyes fixed on Marcus. But it wasn't anger this time. It was something else. Recognition. Marcus turned slowly, confusion flickering in his eyes. "You know me?" he asked. Dr. Hayes didn't answer right away. His gaze moved from Marcus's face to the worn sneakers on his feet, then to the old leather bracelet on his wrist. It was the bracelet that stopped him cold, a thin strip of brown leather with a faded engraving, barely visible now. He had seen it years ago, on the wrist of a man who claimed to heal without medicine, a man who had been chased out of the city after a scandal no one ever fully understood. "Where did you get that?" Dr. Hayes demanded, his voice low and tense. Marcus's jaw tightened. "It's not mine. It belonged to someone who taught me how to help people like Lily." The world seemed to tilt for Dr. Hayes. That man, the one who wore the bracelet, had once promised to help a patient walk again. It had ended in disaster. The patient had collapsed worse than before. Dr. Hayes had been a young doctor then, watching from the sidelines, and he had never forgotten the pain in that family's eyes. "Lily," he said, his tone urgent now, "you don't understand. This boy." But Lily cut him off. "I don't care who taught him. He believes I can do it. And so do I." Her voice shook, but her eyes were steady. She had never spoken to her father like that before. The tension between them was thick, the kind that pressed down on everyone nearby. Marcus's hands tightened on the wheelchair. "I'm not him," he said quietly, as if reading Dr. Hayes's thoughts. "I know what happened before. That's why I'm careful. That's why I didn't try until now. The mist swirled around them, the park strangely silent except for the distant sound of traffic. Lily's heart pounded. The moment that had felt so close just seconds ago now seemed balanced on the edge of something much larger than her own dream. Dr. Hayes took a slow breath, torn between stepping in and stepping back. He could stop this now, end it before anything went wrong. But if he did, he might destroy the fragile hope in his daughter's eyes. Marcus looked at Lily again, his voice barely above a whisper. If we stop now, this chance might not come back. The words hung there, heavy, daring her to decide. And as she gripped the arms of her wheelchair once more, the tension between past and present, between fear and faith, felt ready to snap at any second. Lily's hands trembled against the armrests, but she didn't look away from Marcus. Her father stood only a few steps behind, every muscle in his body tense, ready to catch her if she fell. The air felt thick, charged, like the moment before a storm. Marcus knelt lower so his eyes were level with hers. One breath in, hold, now feel your feet. His voice was calm but full of quiet urgency. Lily closed her eyes. She imagined the ground beneath her, steady and solid, imagined her legs holding her weight, imagined herself standing the way she'd seen in her dreams. She shifted forward. Her feet touched the grass, her knees wobbled, but Marcus's hands stayed light, guiding without holding. Dr. Hayes took an involuntary step closer, his heart pounding. Lily's muscles quivered in protest, but she pushed through it. Slowly, impossibly, she rose. For a moment time stopped. She was standing. Her breath came fast, her eyes wide, as though afraid the moment would shatter if she moved. Marcus grinned through the tears welling in his eyes. Now take a step. The first step was small, awkward, but it was a step. Dr. Hayes's vision blurred as he watched his daughter do the thing he'd spent her entire life believing was impossible. Another step followed, then another, shaky but real. By the time she reached Marcus, she was laughing through her tears, her hands gripping his shoulders for balance. Dr. Hayes rushed forward, pulling her into his arms. He didn't care how or why it worked, only that it had. You did it, Lily. You did it. But when he looked up to thank Marcus, the boy's smile had faded. His face had gone pale, his eyes darting to the edge of the park. There, partially hidden behind a tree, stood an older man with a weathered face, wearing an identical leather bracelet. Marcus's breath caught. He found me, he murmured under his breath. Dr. Hayes followed his gaze, his stomach dropping. The man stepped forward slowly, eyes fixed not on Marcus, but on Lily. So, she's the one, the stranger said, his voice low and unsettling. Before Dr. Hayes could speak, Marcus stepped between them, his jaw set. You're not taking her. The man tilted his head, a faint smile playing on his lips. You think you understand what you've just done. This isn't the end, boy. It's the beginning. Lily's hand tightened around her father's. She didn't know who the man was or why Marcus suddenly looked ready to fight, but she knew one thing. Whatever had just happened, it wasn't over. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves overhead, carrying the stranger's final words as he turned to leave. I'll be seeing all of you very soon. The man's figure disappeared into the mist, leaving a silence that seemed to press in from every side. Dr. Hayes kept his arm wrapped tightly around Lily, his eyes scanning the park as though the stranger might reappear at any moment. Marcus stood completely still, his fists clenched, until the sound of the man's footsteps faded away. Lily was the first to break the silence. Who was that? Her voice was quiet but steady, though her hands still trembled. Marcus turned to her slowly. He's the one who taught me everything I know, the one who helped someone else stand, and the one who made a mistake that nearly ruined them. Dr. Hayes's jaw tightened. And now he's come back. Marcus nodded. He doesn't care about me. He's interested in you, Lily. Because what you did today, it proves something. Something he's been chasing for a long time. They left the park quickly, the three of them walking, Or in Lily's case, half walking, half leaning on her father, back toward the hospital. Every step felt unreal to her. Her legs were shaky, her muscles already sore, but with every movement, a part of her wanted to laugh and cry all at once. When they reached the hospital lobby, Dr. Hayes sat her down in a chair. "We need to make sure you're okay," he said, still in his doctor's voice. But the way his hand lingered on her shoulder told her this was more than just medical concern. Over the next few days, tests confirmed what they could all see. Lily's legs were working, slowly but surely. The progress was fragile, but it was real. Word spread quietly among the hospital staff, but Dr. Hayes kept the details close. He knew the fewer people who knew about Marcus and the man in the park, the better. Marcus visited often, but now there was a heaviness to him. "He's not done," Marcus told Dr. Hayes one evening. "If he believes Lily's the key to proving what he's always claimed, he'll be back. And he'll try to control what happens next." Dr. Hayes studied him for a long moment. "Then we make sure she's ready. And we make sure she knows the difference between help and harm." Lily listened quietly. She was tired of being the one people protected, the one who had to be careful. For the first time in her life, she could imagine walking into a room without wheels beneath her. She could imagine running, dancing, even chasing after Marcus in the park. And she wasn't going to let anyone take that away. On her final day of physical therapy that month, Lily stood on her own without help. Dr. Hayes and Marcus were both there, watching in silence until she took 3 full, strong steps forward. She turned to them, her smile wide and unshakable. "This isn't the end," she said softly. Marcus grinned. "No, it's the start of your story now." And as they left the hospital together, the cold wind at their backs and the city lights stretching ahead, Lily knew that whoever came next, she wasn't facing it from a chair anymore. She was standing, she was walking, and she was ready.